How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back with another off-season FPL video. And today, we're going to be putting our money where our mouth is, and we're going to be doing some Premier League predictions for the 2020-2021 season. If you've been enjoying some stuff on the channel, make sure to leave a like on the videos. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Going to be plenty more videos coming out. They've been starting to release some prices for some of the players in FPL. Super excited to get back in there, and we'll be doing our live streams as normal over on Twitch, so make sure to follow us over there as well. And Twitter is where we post our YouTube videos and post when we go live. You can see it just below me. It's PilotFlame226 on those platforms, and make sure to check that out. Links are also in the description. So without further ado, let's get on to the predictions. So we've gone on to Tier Maker here, and we've made our Premier League prediction table. So as you can see here, we've got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and then 18th, 19th, 20th down in the relegation zone. I've kind of had to bunch them up because you can only do 10 total slots. So we'll make it work. We'll make it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from bottom and then go to the top, and just kind of give my overall thoughts there. So looking at the teams is just overall, first of all, in order to look at potential teams that might be relegated in a prediction, you have to think how the teams that are getting promoted are going to do well in the current season. I think Leeds, for starters, will do quite well. I can easily see them finishing potentially close enough to the top half of the table, and I think that they're going to be quite good with the likes of Bamford up front. They re-signed, I believe it was Harrison, on another deal, so he's going to be there next season. Dallas is somebody who's been looking quite good, and I think overall Bielsa's side is going to be looking quite strong, so I don't see them potentially being in the relegation zone. The two teams that I do, however, see potentially in the relegation zone, I think in 20th place will be Fulham. And I think that they just didn't really impress me in the game that they played versus Brentford. Both teams were quite bad. They kind of showed the same things that they did, a couple seasons ago when they were in the Premier League themselves, kind of relying on Mitrovic. Mitrovic is either going to score you a brace, or he's going to get sent off or get a yellow and just be super unproductive. And I think that type of style, if they try to come out and play some type of attacking football, kind of how Norwich did, it's going to be quite naive, and they could find themselves struggling. And one thing to actually note, I've actually been to Craven Cottage. They have probably one of the nicest seats to sit on in the stadium, so if you ever go there, check them out. They're quite good. But getting back to the prediction here, I think that Fulham will finish 20th this season. I just don't see anything special about their team. Maybe they make a couple of signings and their team ends up, getting a little bit better. But I see them being one of the 3 teams to get relegated this season. In 19th, I think we're going to put West Brom there. They did come second in the championship, but I think that they're just one of these teams historically that just seem to, they go up and then back down, and then they stay down for maybe a season or two, and then they come back up again. And they're just really defensive-minded team. They've improved that since they've been in the championship, but it's a different type of league here in the Premier League. It's going to be a quick turnaround as well. The schedule's going to be a lot more jam-packed. And they're going to have to be dealing with that, as well as potential FA Cup draws and that sort of stuff as well, because that's going to be later on in the season. There's going to be no real winter break as far as the schedule looks. The only thing that they're doing is with game week 18, they're chopping it in half. So there'll be 2 teams that will play, early on in January, where it's like midweek game, weekend game, and then some teams won't. And then later on in January, you'll have a week where then those teams that didn't play will play midweek and then the weekend games. But I think that West Brom is a defensive-minded team normally. Like I said, they improved that slightly in the championship from the little bits I've seen of them, and I don't play to be this type of expert, as it were, on the relegation teams. I've seen more of Leeds, and that's not much more of anything. But I think West Brom will come 19th. That's just my prediction here. These are way too early to be predicting anyway, but it's a lot of fun, so we'll see how it goes. And then the third team that I think will get relegated, because they seem to start to struggle a little bit towards the very end of the season, and I think that an injury or two here, potentially a player leaving here or there, I think that Crystal Palace could end up getting relegated this season. And I think it's mainly due to the fact that Their squad is getting up there in age, and the likes of Zaha is looking to leave, so his motivation is not there. He's been their talisman, and he seems to be somewhat injury prone now as well, picking up a couple of injuries which left him out of the squad for significant periods of time. And I think overall Palace, they just kind of just it seems like they're trying to hope for no games and scraping by, and that's not going to work in the coming Premier League season, with the likes of Leeds coming in. Fulham will definitely try to play some type of attacking football. West Brom has improved a little bit, and teams will be upping their intensity even more. It's now a thing where you have to get at least 95 points to win the league, and it's looking like you need at least 35 to 40 points to potentially stay out of relegation. So it's going to be quite tough for them, and it doesn't seem like they have much in terms of value to sell in the transfer market, and then that leaves them a little bit short on cash, especially with what's been going on for all the teams, and it could be quite a struggle for them. Moving on to 15th, 16th, and 17th, I think that the team that will just escape relegation will be Newcastle United. And my reasoning for this is because they had this takeover kind of looking, being like they're going to bring in Gareth Bale, they're going to bring in Mbappe, they're going to do all these sorts of things. But Steve Bruce has kind of done wonders this season. They have Almiron, they have St. Maximin, playing quite well. And I think if, St. Maximin gets another one of those longer injuries, could be a bit of a bad sign for Newcastle. I think they won't get relegated this season, but I think they're just a team that's just trying to stay afloat at the moment, and I think it could be a bit of a rough season for the Magpies. Moving on to 16th, I think that Aston Villa will improve slightly here, and I think they'll go up to 16th place. Newcastle and Aston Villa, they'll probably be in and around that area, I think. I think that Aston Villa kind of picked it up towards the end of the season, and defensively they were a lot stronger. Now, if they seem to, solidify that, that number 9 role for their team, because obviously Wesley was out for a significant period of the season, and they hang on to Jack Grealish and Tyrone Mings, they could be doing quite well for themselves going into the next season. I think they'll probably just, scrape by just like Newcastle, and there'll be teams that'll be a lot worse than them. I can see them being on around the high 30s or low 40s in points. In 15th, who would be just or in and around that area as well, but I think will be slightly better than them because I think they underperformed somewhat, was Brighton. I think they're going to be looking to get a couple of players in. They obviously have signed Adam Lallana as well, who's going to help bolster their midfield, and I think with him playing first team football, they could, he could show his qualities there, potentially show himself for an England place going into the Euros next year. And I think that Brighton they're not afraid to go and attack. They express themselves, and they showed that they can take it to the likes of the the teams in the upper half of the table. Obviously, with their 2-1 win over Arsenal, showing the type of guile and the type of determination you need to kind of claw Leeds back. And I think that will see them being above the relegation zone by a significant amount of points. I think they'll probably be somewhere in the 40 to 45 point bracket, which will see them in a safe spot. Moving on to 13th and 14th here. Now, this is a bit of a tough one because we're starting to look at some teams here. We have, the big 6 teams left. You got Leeds here. And I think that I'm going to put West Ham in 14th. Now, they were looking very good towards the end of the season. That was mainly because they were fighting for relegation, and you do basically everything in your power to make sure that that doesn't happen. Is it a team that doesn't lack motivation unless it's almost they need to really do it? I don't know. With Souček coming in, he was a good role player in the team and was getting forward and creating things. Antonio was just a new man, and I think that could help them be a little bit better than what they were last season. I think they'll be in and around this spot. They could probably be anywhere from 10th to 14th, to be honest. But they should be looking to get into that 7th, 8th bracket in the top half of the table. I think they'll fall just short of that. And Souček, on another note, is $5 million in FPL, so he could be quite good going into next season as a cheap enabler, given his form and his starting position and how often he was getting involved in the box. So I think that West Ham will be, quite comfortable here, probably mid to high 40s in the points total. Next, I think I'm going to place. Mm, this is a bit it's a bit tough because there's a lot of teams that could vie for this position. But I think I'm actually going to put Everton here. Everton is much like West Ham, where they really want to be getting into that 7th, 8th, ninth bracket. But I think that there are some teams that just are probably going to outperform them overall. And I think Everton has kind of been quite disappointing throughout the majority of last season. Richarlison is very injury prone, and he's basically their key player. And when you leave the season and such a quick turnaround in terms of form, Dominic Calvert-Lewin hadn't scored in who knows how long, and it was quite disappointing. Whether they do something in the transfer market to kind of bolster their squad, they haven't done so yet as far as I know. And I think that with the likes of Leighton Baines retiring, they need to fix that issue there. We're not sure when Mason Holgate will be back, so it could be a bit of an issue there for them. But I think both Everton and West Ham should be striving for the 7th, 8th, ninth bracket, or at least trying to vie for the top 6. In 12th place, I think this is where I will put Leeds United. I think they'll be, a pretty good competitor. I think they'll be well above the drop zone, and I think they'll be quite good overall this season. They play a very attractive style of football, but that could potentially burn them when they play against the tougher teams. So what they'll probably end up doing is beating everyone below them quite comfortably in most cases, vying for some of the like 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th places, and then maybe struggling a little bit versus the teams in 6th and up. So it could be a bit of a struggle there. But I think overall they'll be quite good. They play with very intricate style of football. They're a very system-driven based team, and the systems take time to get to work, especially with the climate that we're in. Teams have been playing a lot of football. They don't have the significant break that they had and like the proper preseason that they're gonna have. So it could be that we see them off to a slow start and then they pick it up, much like how Sheffield United did when they came back in after restart. And I think that's where we're going to put Sheffield United as well. We're going to put them in the 11th spot, and I think that they could see some success again going into next season. They still show that they can compete with the teams well above them. I think they're going to be solidifying themselves as a mid-table club, a solid mid-table club, with Sander Berg coming in last season and kind of rotating him and Lundstrom. Their center backs and their Dean Henderson, if they manage to keep him, will be quite significant for them. If they don't keep Dean Henderson, they could see themselves drop. I'm not sure if there's any news around that yet, but I mean, there was some kind of talks that, hey, look, Dean Henderson might be going back to United, and United's going to have these 3 goalkeepers with Romero, De Gea, and Henderson. You can't have all 3 of them because they're all really, really, really good goalkeepers, in their own right. So I think that Dean Henderson, if he stays, will allow them to stay around that 11th, 12th, 10th mark in there. If not, the defense has to be even better than what it was last season, and people started to find out how Sheffield United was playing. But again, system driven based team, if they can get off on the right foot, then I should see them being quite good defensively and picking up their wins going into the next season, especially if they're able to bring in someone who can basically hold that. Again, they're much like Newcastle, much like Aston Villa, much like themselves, and potentially like West Ham had a problem before Antonio kind of came into form, where they need that person who's going to get the goals for them, on a consistent basis. So Sheffield United is in 11th for me. In 10th place, we're going to go with the consistent Burnley. They showed that they could be down to bare bones and they can still keep clean sheets and along with the best of them. And Nick Pope's going to be 5.5 million going into next season for FPL. Still going to be quite good. Burnley's always defense first. Tarkowski and me are some of the most solid defenders in the league, and they know how to basically run that system. The way Sean Dyche plays it is their 4-4-2 style of system with their more of a long ball approach. they like to basically funnel shots that make it easy for Pope to save. Rather than him going laterally in his goal, he goes horizontally, so it's either he takes the ball into his chest, it's low by his knees, or it's right at his face to where he can catch it, rather than him having to make an acrobatic save. And the defenders defend in such a way whereas they make it so that they can only shoot down the middle of the goal without it being blocked. And I think Burnley will be good defensively going forward. They still need to, maybe re-sign a couple of players. Hanging on to Dwight McNeil would be good for them as well, as he's been quite good. Only 20 years of age, very good English talent. Moving on to 7th, 8th, and 9th, I think we have Southampton here, who's going to be in 9th place. They were quite good last season with Danny Ings being quite good, and I can see them doing even better this season as well. Danny Ings will probably reproduce some similar total, but they kind of need to have a little bit more creativity. I think Hasenhüttl's kind of figured out his system, and if he plays that from the start and they can kind of slightly improve on those changes, maybe get a few players that can be impacts off the bench, they can definitely prove to be a worthy opponent going into next season. And their high press was really intense. We saw that in the Manchester United game as well, where they were just constantly running around, constantly pressing them, and they were creating chances for themselves at the same time for that game. Moving into 8th. Now this is where it's starting to get tricky, because we have Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Leicester, Liverpool, Man United, Spurs, and Wolves still left to go. And it's going to be quite tricky to pick these teams out. I think I'm going to put Wolves in the 8th position, and that's mainly due to the fact that, they are a very system-driven based team as well, but they did not impress in the game in their quarterfinal versus Sevilla in the Europa League. That could be still weighing on their mind in the first couple of weeks that they go into the season. Maybe they see some troubles. Maybe they have to, deal with some stumbling blocks. And I think that they're just they play really, really defensive. When Wolves is really flying high, they have the wing backs kind of overlapping. They have Traore making multiple runs a game, crossing the ball into box Jimenez, and they're really on the front foot. They're using the likes of Neves and Matinho to kind of pressure players and make them make poor passes, pick them off, and then hit them on the break. But they just didn't do that. They just kind of were hoping, I guess, for a 0-0, even though it goes to extra time. It just didn't look good from Wolves personally. Moving into 7th, this is where it also gets, quite tricky as well. With a fully fit squad, I don't see Spurs kind of being in 7th, 8/7th again. I think that the victim this season could potentially be Leicester City, that dropped down out of the top 6. Now they're going to be playing Europa League football, and they did quite well at the very start of the season with their Madison and Pereira and Chilwell and these sorts of players. But there's interest for Soyuncu, potentially he could be leaving. You have Pereira, whose injury is still, I'm not sure if he's going to be fit for the start of the season. Chilwell could be on his way to Chelsea. And, it seems like Brendan Rodgers, he kind of tinkers with his team too much. Like, Iheanacho wasn't played as much as he should have been for me. He was doing quite well, especially in the Bournemouth game. He took Iheanacho off at halftime, who didn't look like he had an injury of any kind, in my opinion. And it was just a weird change overall, and I think that could potentially cost Leicester. Maybe this over tinkering, and maybe Brendan Rodgers sees some struggle. I think this is where their average position will be, and I think they'll finish 7th this season. It's really tough to call with these three, in my opinion. I think they're all relatively strong on their day, and I think that they're just outside the top 6 for me. Now getting into the top 6 here. This is going to be the difficult part here. In 6th, I think we're going to have Arsenal return back into a Europa League spot without having to worry about the FA Cup. And my reasoning for this is because they're going to be tying down Aubameyang to another contract. He's been doing really, really good for them. They brought in Willian for some more experience for the side, because if you look at like their team overall, they have Nicola Pepe, who's quite young, they just brought in. They have Reece Nelson, they have Martinelli, both teenagers. You have Saka, who's also a teenager as well. So they need that winger to come in and be experienced and kind of show them kind of the way things work and how to develop as a player. Willian is definitely that. On his day can be unplayable. He can take set pieces as well, although that was kind of tapered off towards the end of the season. Wasn't as good on that. And he's going to be a solid player overall. He's also Brazilian as well and very good mates with David Luiz. They actually own a restaurant together with their agent as well. As far as I can't remember what the restaurant's called, but somewhere in London somewhere. But yeah, I think he could be quite good as a kind of maybe 3 years was a bit too much for his deal, which is what everyone is reporting. But I think at least for this next year, he's going to be quite good for squad depth and to bring in the likes of Martinelli and these young talents who, once they hit 2021, they'll be getting there to whereas they can be absolutely insanely unplayable, kind of like how Mason Greenwood's been slowly brought into the side. If United get Sancho as an example, which is looking less and less likely, that could be something where Greenwood is maybe played out on the right, and then over time he ends up becoming like a number 9, maybe alongside Martial, maybe as a substitution, who knows. But we'll have to see how that development goes. In 5th place, I think just narrowly not making it into the top 4. Don't know why the logo is cut off. I guess it was bigger than the rest of them. Is Spurs. And Spurs, they picked up Højbjerg, who's effectively a net of just £3 million pounds spent for him. He's going to be a very functional midfielder. He's going to provide Mourinho exactly what he wants. Just someone who's going to be there, retain the ball, get it back. Do the kind of almost the Jordan Henderson type role, just kind of be a little bit of an energy ball in there and kind of retain possession for Spurs. With Harry Kane firing at the end of the season and remaining fit, Heung-min Son looking quite bright, and the likes of Bergwijn kind of playing his role as well as Lucas, they could be quite good and quite potent on the counter-attack. The only thing is I think they'll struggle with teams like Burnley, like Wolves if they plan on sitting in as well. Maybe Sheffield United could cause them a bit of trouble because they, breaking teams down is not really Mourinho's thing. And I think that could see them just slipping out of the top 4. And now we are into the top 4, and I think the top 4 is going to be somewhat similar, but I think that it could be quite interesting. Could be another situation where it's a lot of teams fighting for that final position. But I think in 4th place this season, we're going to have Chelsea picking up the likes of Timo Werner, picking up the likes of Hakim Ziyech, with Willian going to Arsenal. I think that they will retain their top 4 place, playing in the Champions League as well. They played against Bayern Munich and got absolutely smacked, and that's mainly because their defense and their goalkeeper is terrible. And if they don't address that, they will still face the same issues where they'll go up against teams that they should be beating, and they'll end up drawing or losing those games, and they'll end up blowing teams out of the water when they score 3 goals before halftime. So it's kind of a bit of a rocky situation there. They need a solid center back in there. There's reports of John Stones and people like that. But there's reports of Jan Oblak, paying £100 million for him. With financial fair play out of play, they can do that now. So I think that could be something that maybe they go for. And they definitely need defenders at the club. They have no really good ones, which is why I'm surprised they didn't go and pay the 40 million for Ake. He would have probably been their best defender at the club. Get the likes of John Stones. You have 2 young defenders there. One's right-footed, one's left-footed, and you could potentially work around that as well. With if you do decide to play a back 3, you can still play Azpilicueta in there because he's getting on a bit, but in a back 3, Azpilicueta is quite good. In 3rd place, I'm going to go with my team, which is Manchester United. If they do get Jadon Sancho, they will definitely retain this position and close the gap on 2nd and 1st. That is what United and Chelsea will be looking to do this season. Close the gap on City and Liverpool, who are definitely going to be the favorites for the league this season. If Mason Greenwood continues his form, he will be quite good. But United's problem has always been 1 or 2 injuries here and there, and the bench players just aren't good enough. We've seen that over in the Europa League as well. Just not as much productivity, and I think that it all stems from potential weaknesses from the bench and maybe Ole not trusting his bench players to do so. Lingard's been working hard and having to deal with his own personal things over over the lockdown period, and he seems to come back in with a bit more energy, and he can be quite useful. I've had my own share of criticism for him, but I think that if he's going to be, know his role, and he's going to be playing on the bench, and he's going to come in and be like that substitute, it's going to come in, bring in a lot of energy, high press, and continue that style that Ole wants to play, then that's fine. But I still think, right wing, Jadon Sancho, getting him locked down, he could be, a dominant force for the next 10 years. So I think that he should be the priority for United. Just pay the 120 million euros. That's your only signing. It's not the obviously not the end of the world. He's a fantastic signing. Sancho can play. He can play false 9, he can play number 10, he can play left wing, he can play right wing. Yes, United will have to look at potentially a centre back, but when Tuanzebe comes back from injury, you can potentially, use Mengi, in the cup games, and maybe develop him as well. Tuanzebe, like we said, once he comes back from injury, he's very good as well, and could be Maguire's partner long term. And then for, backup fullback, I would like to see Brandon Williams be moved out to the right, at right fullback, and bring in the likes of Laird to play at left fullback. So it's just one of those things where we have the players in our academy to bring them along. Just a matter of if they're going to use them. So we'll see on that front. I think that Liverpool will just come shy of Man City this season. I think they'll come in second place. Their season that they had, the start that they had, was absolutely insane. Started to taper off a little bit, but again, Liverpool is a system-driven based team. They're a very high-intense team, and they kind of knew already. They didn't have to win a single game coming after lockdown. So I think that that was kind of the reason for their slight downturn of form. But I think, the way you end the season is sometimes how you start the season, and that could see them start off on the wrong foot. Maybe they slip up a few points here and there. Maybe City does the exact same thing to them and just goes straight ahead and keeps going. Especially if City win the Champions League, they're going to be a team that's going to be just going full bore and going all guns blazing from the start. They still have the best squad in the league. Aguero's coming back fit, is apparently going to be in the 23 man, or how many players it is, squad for their game versus Lyon. And I think that, City will just triumph over Liverpool this season. If I had to give a points prediction, I think that the winner will have probably like 96, 97 points. And the second place team will be around, I would say probably around like 94, 95. Maybe like a win or a win and a draw away from the... from first place. In terms of getting into top 4 next season, I think 70 points will do it for you. 75 will be more than comfortable. But the likes of United and Chelsea, if Liverpool and City are getting 90 to 100 points or in that bracket, they should be looking to get around 80 to 85 just to kind of close that gap and keep pace with them. That's their goal this season, and maintain their Champions League spot. So yeah, that's my predictions for the Premier League 2020-2021 season. I'm just going to run it down here. So in first we have Man City, second is Liverpool, third Manchester United, fourth Chelsea, fifth Tottenham Hotspurs, sixth is Arsenal, seventh Leicester, eighth Wolves, ninth Southampton, 10th Burnley, 11th Sheffield United, 12th is Leeds, 13th is Everton, 14th is West Ham, 15th is Brighton, 16th Aston Villa, 17th Newcastle United, and the relegation teams, 18th is Crystal Palace, 19th is West Brom, and dead last in 20th is Fulham. That's going to be my predictions, and we'll come back next season in the off season and see how my predictions did just before the FPL season of 2021-2022 starts. And that's going to do it for my FPL predictions. Sorry it was a long video, but if you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like on the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. There's going to be a lot of FPL content coming out in the game weeks leading up and including in the season. And make sure to turn those notification bells on so that you can get the videos as soon as they are readily available. Also, you have to follow us over on Twitter and Twitch. It's PilotFlame226. Twitter is where we're going to be posting our FPL league code once it is available to join. We are also going to be, posting all of our content there when it gets uploaded. So whether that be a live stream on Twitch or a video for YouTube. And as we mentioned, Twitch is where we do our game week discussion streams. We're also doing some gaming stuff over there as well. So make sure to follow us over there. Would appreciate the support on that platform. I can't wait until the the FPL season becomes available, because once I have it, I'm going to be going over on Twitch, setting up a time and having a blank team sheet, and we can be discussing players and that sort of stuff as I fill my team in. So make sure to follow us over there. I'll make sure to put an official tweet out for that, which is why it's important to follow us on those platforms. So thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next one, take care.